Welcome to DejaCode New Features 2019. Let's see what's new in DejaCode. We're in the Starship data space. That is a sample company and data space that it might be similar to one that you would have if you were using DejaCode for your own companies. And we're mainly going to be looking to start with at products because we've done a lot of work on the product experience and how you define your products in DejaCode to make it easier to use and to enhance the features. So let's take a look at what we can do right now. So if we take a look at, say, this product, Starship Data Explorer, this is an example of a product that you might put in to describe one of the things that you sell, produce, ship, deploy. And here it is. Some of the things that you can say about it. It contains an inventory. The inventory consists of components and packages. More about those as we go, but essentially, components are roughly equivalent to software projects. And packages are very specific files that have been downloaded. Okay? Those are the two things that we're concerned about with. We also have the ability to express where things are in your code base for your product. And you can cross-reference those to, yes, the components and the packages in that code base. And you can also get a hierarchical view, which is a convenient way to look at it. And you can use that view to look at only the deployed items if you wish, and only the internal ones if you like, or all of them. And that's a convenient way to get an idea of what's in your code base. You can also have a notice, maybe a more elaborate one than that, your own license. You can create that in the DejaCode license library. Describe yourself. And so all of that information is available for you. Let's take a quick look at what we just talked about. The product in DejaCode, an inventory, a list of your software objects, components. There are two kinds of components, and we haven't talked about custom components just yet, but we shall. And packages, and also the fact that a component can reference multiple packages. We'll look at that in a little while as well in more detail. And also, you can specify code base resources. Where are the things in your product code base? That can be very important, especially when you're trying to deal with license issues, to know exactly where it is in your code base and how it's being used. And you may want to document that in DejaCode. So let's move on. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you a few of the things that have happened. Now, we now enable you to do just about everything for product inside what we call the user view. So let's take a look at that. One of the things you can do, for instance, is if you've got an existing product, is that you can now edit it right from here. And if you want, you can actually clone it to a new version so that you can start work from something that you already have. So for instance, I can save this as a new version and it copies everything that was in the old one. Okay, very convenient. So it's there for me now, and I've got two versions of the product. And as I start changing the new one, I'll be able to compare the two. Okay, that's a very convenient thing. I can also, of course, create a new product. Let's do that. Pretty good typing, eh? Okay, anyway, this is the kind of thing that you can do when you create a new product. There we are. Now, that's just the basic thing. We want to put some objects on that to show what's in that product. So there are a number of ways to do that, and I'm going to start with just a few of the simple ones. Let's take a look at packages. Okay, I mentioned already these are specific files. We can add 2 of those packages to our new product as simply as this. We just go blank, and there it is. We now have 2 packages on that product. And we can talk about how they're used, we can review them, we can indicate other things that are important to know about the way we're using those packages in that product. We can also do the same thing with components. Let's pick a few components and add those to our product. Our inventory is growing. As you can see, we have components and packages, and we now have the kind of information that you can get from our catalog. Now, suppose that you have a list of things that you've been working on, things that you've been using that aren't in the catalog yet. And suppose you want to document those in the product. Well, there are a number of ways you can do that. And one of those is to create a custom component. You can do that directly from the UI here. Just put the name, version, owner, copyright, etc. But suppose you have a nice, convenient little spreadsheet that's in the format that we need. Okay, let's take a look at that. Let's go over to the admin side and let's do a product component import. You can import things this way into DaisyCode for all kinds of purposes. Here, we're specifically going to do a product component relationship import. And as you can see, we tell you what the fields are and whether they're required or not. Very little is actually required. And we can get that from a CSV created with your favorite spreadsheet maker. And I just happen to have one all ready to go. Let's see what happens. Look at that. It's going to add these to the 2 products we've been looking at. And these are some things that the team has been working on. And it's mainly to complement the available functions within the GSOAP. So let's go ahead and import that. See what happens. Look at that. There we are. We've added those, and they are now on the products that we've been looking at. So we can go back to that. Let's take a look at Star Synthesizer now. We have successfully added a number of items, and we can edit them. We can do all kinds of things with them. One of the things we can do is run attribution. Okay, you can do this at any point, and you get something that looks like this. Something from your company, about your licenses, what's in the product as far as components go, and what licenses. And as you can see, we do quite a bit of information about that. And it'll be as good as, of course, as the information that you've already got in your catalog or in the custom components that you've added. And so that information will be here, and you can save this off, and you've got an attribution document ready to use. But let's go ahead and go back to here, and maybe there's a few more things we'd like to see. And then just to make sure you've been following, what have we done? We've now enabled you to use the user view, as we call it, to do most of your product work. You can build it quickly. We've got ability to add freeform data for custom components, and we can support product package assignments, and you can see them in a combined inventory. So those are some of the new things that we've done. And there are still more ways, though, to get data into DesiaCode and to add it to a product. And we're going to look at those now. We've been busy improving our integration with open source tools. NextB sponsors a number of open source projects, ScanCode Toolkit being one of the most well-known and popular, used by many companies now. There is also some work being done on About Code and About Code Toolkit. If you wanted more information about all of our products, About Code is one place that would be really handy to do that, because we've been working with the Google Season of Documents to enhance our documentation, and a great deal of it is now available on Read the Docs format. And you might enjoy reading about the various open source projects that DesiaCode and NextB offer. Well, let's go back though to DesiaCode and let's find out one of the things that we can do. One of them is to add a package directly from its origin site. Let's just go find one. How about this one? Okay, and let's get its download URL. Go back to here. Plop that in there. And there we are. We're creating a package. We've also taken the information about that package that we've already captured and submitted it to ScanCode. We have a server implementation of ScanCode called ScanCode.io, which is handling that now. And it's going to ultimately come back to us with the information about that scan. And we'll be able to use that in DesiaCode. Another thing we can do is import things that you've scanned yourself locally on using ScanCode Toolkit. And you can imagine, so you have a code base full of all kinds of interesting things. I'm going to import data that actually is not that. It's an open source project, but it's complicated enough that it'll give you an idea of what that will accomplish. So let's go ahead and open something called XBean, okay, and see what it does. What we're going to see is that it's going to go into the results of the scan from ScanCode Toolkit and pull in new objects to go into my inventory. And it's going to tell me where it got them. So found a bunch of packages and their licenses, and they're now in my product. Okay, so if you had code in your code base that we scanned and found that had interesting licenses, you'd know about it, and you'd be able to do something about it and decide what that's going to look like ultimately. So again, you can run attribution on all of these new things, okay? And you can continue to work on your product. So we have now got all kinds of data from several different ways, okay? We've got these objects, and they're now ready to be used. Let's look a bit more at packages. There's a we haven't gotten that one scan back yet, but let's look at one that we recently scanned. and I can show you some of the information that comes back. We get a license score based on the clearly defined standard, and as you can see, if you have any questions about what any of those things mean, it'll show you. Nextbee has participated in that particular open source project. We've come back and defined a package URL for that package. It's a relatively new standard that's been adopted in a number of places from another open source project that Nextbee has sponsored for the package URL, a unique way to define a package. We've come back with license information, dependencies, and a whole lot of detail. And in fact, we've given you the key files to look at, okay? And we've presented all of this information in different ways so that it's convenient for you to do that. And notice that you can move those values into the package if you like and save them in DesiaCode. So we've got all of these ways now to show that information. And there's another thing you can do with packages now in DesiaCode, and I want to show those to you right now as well. Suppose you want to create a new component using some package data that you have. Okay, we can do that. We can add it to an existing component, or we can create a new component. And here we are. We actually default some of the information that you need to make a proper component. And so you can identify the owner if you know that. You can pull in notice text. There are all kinds of things you can do on that component and add it. Okay? And if you like, you can, of course, add it to your product. All right? Those are new things that you can do from the user view of the application now. And so just to review, we've created a new package. We've created different objects on a component by uploading them from a scan that you created of your code base. We've combined packages into a new component. And as you can see, we've got different ways of tracking these things. Take a look at now the scans. Notice that the one that I submitted just a little while ago is now complete. Let's take a look at it. There's our license score. There's some information about it. If you want to know where those licenses are referenced, we tell you. And so I can go ahead and say that I want to add those to my package. Okay, and we can do that just like that. Gives you a chance to edit things a bit if you like. And now we have more information on our package than we had before because we got it from the scan. If you like, you can go directly to the code repository and get more information about that. It goes to the release of the one that you were just working with. And let's go back to DesiaCode. So that information is there if you like. Again, you can add it to a product. Give you some idea if you need to start working more on that product. And there you are. So we've got a growing inventory of components and packages on our product that we've been working with. ScanCode.io, adding packages, importing code-based scans. I did not get a chance to show it to you, not really in a scope for today, but you can also use open source project ScanCode Workbench conclusions to send custom component data to DesiaCode products as well. Okay, all of that is available. And again, you can just go to Nextbee's open source site on GitHub and try those things out yourself. Okay, let's move on. We've been looking at a number of products. We've seen attribution several times. There are other things that you might want to do to review your product information. You might want to run some reports. These are sample reports. You can build your own reports using the DesiaCode tool. Very easy tool. You don't need to know SQL. You don't need to understand our product object model. It guides you along to do that. And every report is based on a query that you can define to get the data that you need, and a column template that describes the data that you want to see. And here's one that is for reviewing your product inventory. Okay, and this will do it on the product we originally looked at, Starship Data Explorer. You could run the same thing on Star Synthesizer. And there we are. That's the product that we've just been doing. Why would you want to run this report? So that you can share the data with your colleagues. There are a number of ways you can do that. The most popular being, of course, your favorite spreadsheet format. Or if you just want to print it in a nice way, you could print it as HTML. And then there are these other formats as well, especially if you want to import them into other tools. But if you want to slice and dice and ask people, is this accurate? And if you want to add more columns, those will get added to your spreadsheet when you export it. This is just a sample of what you can get by using our products. There are a number of reports that you may want to run. Again, we've done some samples here. You may want to take a look at the code-based resources and make sure you've got those right and ask people for commentary on that. You may want to run individual reports that dig down a lot more deeply into each of the kinds of objects: catalog components, custom components, and product packages. All of those things can be there, and you can analyze them using our reports. Okay, there are more things you can do. You may recall that one of the things we show when you add something to a product is the usage policy. You've probably noticed these little things popping up here and there. You define these. We provide samples, but these are your policies as they apply to particular licenses. And the policies you're seeing here are typical if you're shipping a commercial product that uses open source components. It may be necessary for you to review certain components to see, is it okay to use one of those in our product, because it could have say for instance, a copyleft impact. A little earlier, we were looking at this one, and you may have noticed that we have GSOAP Toolkit here, very popular, but we might need to make sure that we're using it correctly so that we don't end up with a copyleft influence on the rest of our product. So let's take a look at that. That's the component there. Now, let's go ahead and ask legal to review it, okay? What you're seeing now is what we call a request template that is completely and totally customizable. You create these. You use the forms that you currently use and improve on them if you like. Decide who's going to review it. That can be defaulted, by the way. Your priorities, these are entirely up to you, how you want to do these. If you'd like, you can CC that to somebody, and it'll also send a copy to you, all right? And when you do this. And you can answer some questions about that. There we go. And submit a request. That request now will appear in the queue of Starship Reviewer. It will be available to anyone who has access to it through security of the product and of any requests that might be on it. You may have noticed one of the options was to put the request in privately. Suppose I'm reviewing this now. I can go directly to that inventory now and say, oh, okay, GSOAP. Maybe it's okay to use it because we've done a little bit of research and we've found out that we're only going to use it to create and build the product, and that we're actually not putting the artifacts or it itself into our product. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this, okay, and make some notes and make a few annotations and corrections to what is in my definition of that component as it's used in the product. And so oops, there we go. Okay, look at that. I've completed that request, and I can then edit that and say it's done. You can use our DejaCode API, if you like, to integrate DejaCode workflow with an existing workflow system that you might have. You can also use the DejaCode API to integrate with just about any of your applications and with most of our objects, which, as you can see, are all available through API. And the API essentially works on the same security that the application does. So every user will, of course, have the ability to see, edit, change, you name it, different objects in DejaCode, and you'll be able to use our API. Want to know more about how to use it? You go to our API documentation. And you can even try things out, okay? There's an interact mode that you can use to try the API out and find, I have some data, is that going to work? For instance, or I want to query something, let me just try this first. So these are various ways that you can integrate DejaCode. And of course, the new features that I've been showing you with our application. So I think that takes care of everything. If you didn't quite catch every single thing that I showed you, you can always go to the release notes. And you can do that, of course, if you're signed up in our evaluation data space. How do you do that? Do a quickie. Here is our public DejaCode site, enterprise.dejacode.com, and it'll take you initially to the landing page where you can sign in. And of course, if you're a SaaS customer, that's where you would sign in and go directly to your data space. But you can also sign in to what we call our evaluation data space. And if you don't have an account there, you should get one, and you can try all the things that I've been showing you, and you can start to get a better feeling for yourself about how DejaCode works. There we have it. And you'll be able to look at release notes. You'll be able to do all kinds of things to see if how the request system works, and get links to our documentation and all kinds of things. Thank you so much